I tried to picture Zia going to a regular public high school, learning a locker combination, hanging out in the cafeteria. I couldn't picture it. I imagined she would be as lost as I would. Tell you what, I said, after the testing, after the demon days, when things settle down. Things won't settle down. I'm going to take you to the mall. She blinked. The mall? For what reason? To hang out, I said. We'll get some hamburgers, see a movie. Zia hesitated. Is this what you'd call a date? My expression must have been priceless because Zia actually cracked a smile. You look like a cow hit with a shovel. I didn't mean, I just meant... She laughed, and suddenly it was easier to imagine her as a regular high school kid. I will look forward to this mall, Carter, she said. You are either a very interesting person or a very dangerous one. Let's go with interesting. She waved her hand and the door reappeared. Go now, and be careful. The next time you sneak up on me, you might not be so fortunate. At the doorway I turned. Zia, what was that black shimmery stuff? Her smile faded. An invisibility spell. Only very powerful magicians are able to see through it. You should not have... She stared at me for answers, but I didn't have any. Maybe it was wearing off or something, I managed. And can I ask, the blue sphere? She frowned. So what? The thing you released that went into the ceiling. She looked mystified. I don't know what you mean. Perhaps the candlelight was playing tricks on your eyes. Awkward silence. Either she was lying to me, or I was going crazy, or I didn't know what. I realised I hadn't told her about my vision of Amos and Set, but I felt that I'd already pushed her as far as I could for one night. Okay, I said. Good night. I made my way back to the dorm, but I didn't get to sleep again for a long time. Fast forward to Luxor. Maybe now you understand why I didn't want to leave Zia behind, and why I didn't believe Zia would actually hurt us. On the other hand, I knew she wasn't lying about Desjardins. That guy wouldn't think twice about turning us into escargot. And the fact that Set has spoken French in my dream, bonsoir, Amos, was that just a coincidence? Or was something a lot worse going on? Anyway, when Sadie tugged on my arm, I followed. We ran out of the temple and headed for the obelisk. But naturally it wasn't that simple. We're the Kane family. Nothing is ever that simple. Just as we reached the obelisk, I heard the slishing sound of a magic portal. About 100 yards down the path, a bold magician in white robes stepped out of the whirling sand vortex. Hurry, I told Sadie. I grabbed the staff rod from my bag and threw it at her. Since I cut yours in half, I'll stick with the sword. But I don't know what I'm doing, she protested, searching the obelisk's base, as if she hoped to find a secret switch. The magician regained his balance and spat the sand out of his mouth. Then he spotted us. Stop! Yeah, I muttered. That's gonna happen. Paris, Sadie turned to me. You said the other obelisk is in Paris, right? Right, not to rush you, but... The magician raised his staff and started chanting. I fumbled for the hilt of my sword. My legs felt like they were turning to butter. I wondered if I could pull off that hawk warrior thing again. That'd been cool, but it'd also been just a duel. And the test at the chasm bridge, when I deflected those daggers, that hadn't seemed like me. Every time I'd drawn this sword so far, I'd had help. Zia had been there, or Bast. I'd never felt completely alone. This time, it was just me. I was crazy to think I could hold off a full-fledged magician. I was no warrior. Everything I knew about swords came from reading books, the history of Alexander the Great, the Three Musketeers, as if that could help. With Sadie occupied at the obelisk, I was on my own. No, you're not, said a voice inside me. Great, I thought. I'm on my own and going crazy. At the far end of the avenue, the magician called out, Serve the House of Life, but I got the feeling he wasn't talking to me. The air between us began to shimmer. Waves of heat flowed from the double lines of sphinxes, making them look as if they were moving. Then I realised they were moving. Each one cracked down the middle, and ghostly apparitions appeared from the stone like locusts breaking out of their shells. Not all of them were in good shape. The spirit creatures from broken statues had missing heads or feet. Some limped along on only 3 legs, but at least a dozen attack sphinxes were in perfect condition. And they all came towards us, each one the size of a Doberman, made of milky white smoke and hot vapour. So much for the sphinxes being on our side. "Soon," I warned Sadie. "Paris," she called, and raised her staff and wand. "I want to go there now. 2 tickets, first class would be nice." The sphinxes advanced. The nearest one launched itself towards me, and with sheer luck I managed to slice it in half. The monster evaporated into smoke, but it let out a blast of heat so intense I thought my face was going to melt right off. 2 more sphinx ghosts loped towards me. A dozen more were only a few steps behind. I could feel my pulse pounding in my neck. Suddenly the ground shook, the sky darkened, and Sadie yelled, "Yes!" The obelisk glowed with purple light, humming with power. Sadie touched the stone and yelped. She was sucked inside and disappeared. "Sadie!" I yelled. In my moment of distraction, 2 of the sphinxes slammed into me, knocking me to the ground. My sword skittered away, my rib cage went crack, and my chest erupted in pain. The heat coming off the creatures was unbearable. It was like being crushed under a hot oven. I stretched out my fingers towards the obelisk, just a few inches too far. I could hear the other sphinxes coming, the magician chanting, "Hold him! Hold him!" With my last bit of strength, I lurched towards the obelisk, every nerve in my body screaming with pain. My fingertips touched the base, and the world went black. Suddenly I was lying on cold, wet stone. I was in the middle of a huge public plaza. Rain was pouring down, and the chilly air told me I was no longer in Egypt. Sadie was somewhere close by, yelling in alarm. The bad news: I'd brought the 2 sphinxes with me. One jumped off me and bounded after Sadie. The other was still on my chest, glaring down at me, its back steaming in the rain, its smoky white eyes inches from my face. I tried to remember the Egyptian word for fire, maybe if I could set the monster ablaze, but my mind was too full of panic. I heard an explosion off to my right, in the direction Sadie had run. I hoped she'd got away, but I couldn't be sure. The Sphinx opened its mouth and formed smoky fangs that had no business on an ancient Egyptian king. It was about to chomp my face when a dark form loomed up behind it and shouted, "Mange des muffins!" Slice. The Sphinx dissolved into smoke. I tried to rise but couldn't. Sadie stumbled over. "Carter, oh God, are you okay?" I blinked at the other person, the one who had saved me. A tall, thin figure in a black, hooded raincoat. What she yelled? "Eat muffins?" What kind of battle cry was that? She threw off her coat, and a woman in a leopard skin acrobatic suit grinned down at me, showing off her fangs and her lamp-like yellow eyes. "Miss me?" asked Bast. 18. When fruit bats go bad. We huddled under the eaves of a big white government building and watched the rain pour down on the Place de la Concorde. It was a miserable day to be in Paris. The winter skies were heavy and low, and the cold, wet air soaked right into my bones. There were no tourists, no foot traffic. Everyone with any sense was inside, by a fire enjoying a hot drink. To our right, the River Seine wound sluggishly through the city. Across the enormous plaza, the gardens of the Tuileries were shrouded in a soupy haze. The Egyptian obelisk rose up lonely and dark in the middle of the square. We waited for more enemies to pop out of it, but none came. I remembered what Zia had said about artifacts needing a 12-hour cooldown before they could be used again. I hoped she was right. "Hold still," Bast told me. I winced as she pressed her hand against my chest. She whispered something in Egyptian, and the pain slowly subsided. "Broken rib," she announced. "Better now, but you should rest for at least a few minutes." "What about the magicians?" "I wouldn't worry about them just yet. The house will assume you teleported somewhere else." "Why?" Paris is the 14th norm, Desjardins' headquarters. You would be insane trying to hide in his home territory. Great, I sighed. And your amulets do shield you, Bast added. I could find Sadie's anywhere because of my promise to protect her. But the amulets will keep you veiled from the eyes of Set and from other magicians. I thought about the dark room in the first gnome with all the children looking into bowls of oil. Were they looking for us right now? The thought was creepy. I tried to sit up and winced again. Stay still, Bast ordered. Really, Carter, you should learn to fall like a cat. I'll work on that, I promised. How are you even alive? Is it the 9 lives thing? Oh, that's just a silly legend. I'm immortal. But the scorpions, Sadie scrunched in closer, shivering and drawing Bast's raincoat around her shoulders. We saw them overwhelm you. Bast made a purring sound. Dear Sadie, you do care. I must say, I've worked for many children of the pharaohs, but you two... She looked genuinely touched. Well, I'm sorry if I worried you. It's true, the scorpions reduced my power to almost nothing. I held them off as long as I could. Then I had just enough energy to revert to Muffin's form and slip into the duat. I thought you weren't good at portals, I said. Well, first off, Carter, there are many ways in and out of the duat. It has many different regions and layers. The abyss, the river of night, the land of the dead, the land of demons. Sounds lovely, Sadie muttered. Anyway, portals are like doors. They pass through the duat to connect one part of the mortal world to another. And yes, I'm not good at those, but I am a creature of the duat. If I'm on my own, slipping into the nearest layer for a quick escape is relatively easy. And if they killed you, I asked, killed Muffin, that would have banished me deep into the duat. It would have been rather like putting my feet in concrete and dropping me into the middle of the sea. It would have taken years, perhaps centuries, before I would have been strong enough to return to the mortal world. Fortunately, that didn't happen. I came back straight away, but by the time I got to the museum, the magicians had already captured you. We weren't exactly captured, I said. Really, Carter? How long were you in the first norm before they decided to kill you? About 24 hours. Bast whistled. They've got friendlier. They used to blast godlings to dust in the first few minutes. We're not... Wait, what did you call us? Sadie answered, sounding as if in a trance. Godlings. That's what we are, aren't we? That's why Zia was so frightened of us. Why Desjardins wants to kill us. Bast patted Sadie's knee. You always were bright, dear. Hold on, I said. You mean hosts with gods? That's not possible. I think I'd know if... Then I thought about the voice in my head, warning me to hide when I met Iskander. I thought about all the things I was suddenly able to do, like fight with a sword and summon a magic shell of armour. Those were not things I'd covered in home school. Carter, Sadie said, when the Rosetta Stone shattered, it let out 5 gods, right? Dad joined with Osiris. Amos told us that. Set, I don't know. He got away somehow. But you and I... The amulets protected us. I clutched the Eye of Horus around my neck. Dad said they would. If we had stayed out of the room as Dad told us to, Sadie recalled. But we were there watching. We wanted to help him. We practically asked for power, Carter. Bast nodded. That makes all the difference. An invitation. And since then, Sadie looked at me tentatively, almost daring me to make fun of her. I've had this feeling, like a voice inside me.